Well, hello there and welcome everyone to the Advisor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Rob Jacomen. And guys, we have a really exciting show for you. Again, we knocked it out of the park again. Chad, actually, you knocked it out of the park because we have an amazing guest on our show today. His name is Daniel Friedman. He's the founding partner and CEO of WMGNA. And they are basically tax out financial solutions. They're a firm that employs a tax out approach to financial planning. So, with that being said, Chad, I'll turn it over to you because you know our guest really well and you guys have a great connection. So we'll leave it up to you to make our intro here.
Absolutely. Well, no, it was really cool. Daniel, we met, actually, I think it was through one of your team members reached out to me and I don't remember exactly what it was for, but we kind of started a conversation, then pulled you into it. And it's always fun when we can talk with a founder and that's got your depth of experience in financial advisory space. But let's start with make sure we understand WMGNA. What does that stand for?
Well, many moons ago, Chad, I was maybe 1988, 89, something like that. Was in Vancouver with one of our mentors and really liked it. And said to Brian at the time, we were Sound Financial Strategies, and said, you know what? I want to have an office in Vancouver. Let's make it Wealth Management Group of North America. Little did we know that it was a bit more complicated than just having that. So it has been something that has WMGNA, the getting around the WMGNA, and we've spoken to folks many times about doing something with it. But 30 years, it is somewhat, there's a small modicum of brand recognition, if you will. So we're keeping it for now.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Now I got to ask, because Vancouver, I'm assuming Vancouver, British Columbia, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I got to ask, because right across the river from me is Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah.
And so when you come out next time to the Northwest, let me know.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll grab a beer or something.
Beautiful out there, or some white water. Yeah.
We get a little bit of everything. So So one of the things, and thank you for jumping on. We're going to get into some interesting stuff today because what's really unique about what you guys do is you've built a process specifically around subscription based and tax planning. Tax planning. And what's interesting to me is we hear a lot of advisors talk about holistic, planning and all of that. And you guys have really dug into that and even built a program where you can help advisors figure out if the subscription-based model is good for them, kind of thinking about what that is. And I went through that just because I was interested in what that looked like, which was fantastic. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you, just kind of background. You've been doing this for a very long time. What's your history in the financial advisory? How did you end up here so holistic and dynamic in the work you do for clients?
There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. So I haven't really been looking back. I'm looking forward. But the way things got started was graduated Denison University in 1986, some time ago. Took a job in Clarksburg, West Virginia, had some family. That's where my mother grew up. And spent some time with my grandfather, who I was very close to. So it was nice there. And started working there, prepaid legal services. I had a degree in history. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to come back to West Hartford and move back in with my younger brother and little sister. Out of their way. I'm sure everyone was happy with that decision. And a couple years in West Virginia, it was interesting. A friend of mine's father had left education and was recruiting for financial services, said it'd be really good, for me, and if nothing else, it would give him practice on trying to place. And I think I was one of the first people that he sent up to. It was a Guardian Life Insurance General Agency, and I interviewed, I went back to West Virginia, and then I came home like that Thanksgiving maybe, and decided I was going to move here and go to work for a life insurance general agency.
Okay. And then expanded for, as that went along, it sounds like you probably got your teeth into the financial advising side of it, or did you kind of figure out the tax aspect of financial advising? What would that look like?
Well, what colored sort of the idea of going into what Brian and I did was there was a ton of really smart people. They had an attorney who did qualified retirement plans. They had a investment guy, and he was from Belgium. He was really, other than the chain smoking all the time, but you're allowed to do that, back then, and really good planning and sort of sales. The guy who ran it. The whole idea of, finding people like you and then talking to them about what you're doing, follow your check, all this old school stuff that still would resonate today differently. Obviously, times have changed, but everything was around selling life insurance. And the name of the firm was after the gentleman, but we got paid by Guardian. So there was sort of this behind the scenes thing going on. But it was a bunch of young guys, and there's several of them one has a very big LPL, OSJ, great guy, coached one of my boys on the football team that we sponsored. He was the coach, his son and my youngest son, played on the team. A few years into that, there were some changes that were going on. His agency, there was a brokerage. I met Brian playing basketball. He was at Home Life, a lot of life insurance here in the insurance capital of the world. I think it's still Hartford, Connecticut. I think Ohio, maybe. Columbus is competing with us or have taken over. But I always had a good time in Columbus myself too. But we were playing basketball, and I was at this, again, same sort of firm, another Guardian, and they had a big pension plan and business owner sales system. The office he was working at was closing. So we talked after. There was a men's basketball league we were both in. I didn't know him. And he mentioned, and it was like $500 if you brought someone on and they made their contract for 6 months. Yep. So he seemed like a cool guy, and I could use the 500 at the time. I had 2 boys, 16 months apart. I was renting an apartment, and their mother, who I was married with at the time, had just passed the bar. So an extra 500 seemed pretty cool. And then he came over, and Brian's far more like technical oriented. Economy degree. We both loved baseball. He's Yankees, I'm Red Sox. Played baseball in college, and we met some thought leaders on the 10 secrets the IRS didn't want you to know. We started sending out reports with a dollar bill attached to it, and then having cold callers follow up on them. And the pitch was, find out how to save at least $5,000 in taxes or other expenses, or the analysis is free. But we couldn't charge for it anyhow back then.
Right.
And we started building this thing up.
Okay.
But again, you had to sell life insurance to everyone to keep your seat warm there. And so we went to them and said, hey, we want to do a service where we charge upfront for everything, and we wanted to include the taxes. We had 2 mentors, Jerry and Jeffrey. Jeffrey was a CPA who realized that he was doing all this planning work and then charging, whatever it was back then for the tax return, and then sending out to his friend at Morgan Stanley, who was, driving a Mercedes because of this guy. And he figured, and some of it was not necessarily what was the intention of all the tax planning and tax work. Nonetheless, so we went to these guys and said, we're going to do it. We want to do it here. They said, no way. It just knocked that off. And so in 1995, August 14th, I had turned 31 the month before. We left there, rented a small office, got a $10,000 line of credit from Mike from Rockville Savings, or Derby Savings at the time, who said, I like your story. We had no money, and we went on from there.
That is really cool. And one reason I really love, and thank you for sharing the story, because one of the reasons the Advisor's Edge is here is actually to hopefully give some encouragement for advisors as they're building and growing. And because it's really hard, especially in those early days when you're out there, you don't have money, you got some great ideas, you're putting it all together. And I hear you found a kindred spirit with Brian, and then you made a go of it. And obviously it's worked out well for you.
Yeah. No, we you know what? It's been a lot of fun. I mean, there were times where we looked at each other. It's like, why aren't more people signing up? Where's all, they did a Hartford Business Journal rookies. And so we've always been sort of into telling people what we're doing.
Yeah.
90% of life is showing up. So people will ask, well, how do you get your article? How do you get your TV spots? How do you get on Chad's? You show up and say, hey, you know what? That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
We'd like to be a guest. We'd like to be on TV. I'm going to be on Fox 61 on some press releases that we sent out on what Connecticut taxpayers have to do between now and the end of the year, not to get blown up by the salt torpedo and to maximize the one big beautiful bill. I'm not saying that I believe it's that or not, but that's what it is called, between now and the end of the year, to save thousands of dollars in taxes and other expenses that you might be overpaying. And it's, the privilege of a lifetime, Chad, is being who you are. So we use song lyrics, so for the avoid the salt torpedo, the subject to the media, to the 80 people that I have, and you can go on the internet and find out who they are. They're looking for stuff, you dropped a bomb on me. And Fox is going to have us in October 1st to talk about what Connecticut taxpayers need to do between, now and the end of the year to land up on the right side of things come April of 2026.
Very
That's
cool.
great.
I got a question. Let's dive into, let's go deeper into your business. Because I know Chad has some great questions to ask, but now that you brought that up, Daniel, when you started this business, it evolved in terms of who you made a decision to go out and serve. Like, who is your ideal customer, your dream customer that you started with, and how has it evolved over time as you got more and more experienced? Do you guys focus intentionally on a very specific dream client or specialty area that really differentiates you from everybody else in the market?
It's a good question. Ideally, our service will resonate best with folks who instinctively and intuitively understand that we all know how much money we have. We don't know how much time. So a trusted advisor who can take care of everything that touches your money. And so for, our value proposition is, for a relatively small amount of your money, you get a whole bunch of our time and our strategic specialists. So, well, what does that have to do with investments? In 30 years, we've never met someone who can show us their GIPS Global Investment Performance Standard, where to be and when calls.
Yeah.
Because we would be really rich, and the most famous people in the world if we bumped into them. And we get calls all the time about, hey, that manager, this manager. So that's, and people who understand that money is a means to an end, it's not an end. Someone says, get me rich. I don't know what that means or how to do that. So, we've had this true success formula, great lifestyle plus money multiplied by the time to enjoy it. So someone who's thoughtful, who wants to give consideration to what that great lifestyle is, I'm sure it's different, but similar in many ways for the three of us. And then wants to add as much money as, legally and ethically possible, and then have the time to enjoy it. So the tax piece, though, is really what differentiates us. The only thing people have to do with their money is file a tax return. Most middle-class millionaires, however you want to define it, most millionaires next door are inundated with investment advice, opportunities. Almost all the W-2 employee, people who get a W-2 are working, or wage earners. Their tax planning goes on after the year is over, when almost all opportunities have passed. And it's more about compliance and sourcing, and that's a big job. I'm sure your guys' tax returns are many pages, and they're adding more pages. And we just had a tax law change that may add more pages and more complexity. So that was our piece, a service that you paid for that includes your taxes. Now, who is, again, what type of people? Everyone has to file a tax return. We've always said, if they're cool and they want to come and talk to us, we're humbled and flattered. And what we want to do is have everyone say, wow, whether we end up working together or not, wow, that was worth my time. Wow, they're a good group of guys and gals. Wow, if someone else brings up something when it comes to finances, taxes, investments, estate planning, and you could go through the litany, maybe you should, take a few minutes. I mean, it's more than a few minutes if you talk to me, but you talk to someone else at the office, it's a few minutes.
That's great. I'm curious. So the one of the things that's great is the ethos that you come at it with, wowing your clients is one of those things. And like you mentioned, everybody has to file a tax return. If you get any money coming in, you're gonna have some work to do there. Was that kind of a driver? I'm just really curious, what got you to build this program that you did around subscription-based model? Because that's a lot different than what we see as the typical AUM-based model.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the great things for you, Danielle, and your team is how you're wowing clients, right? And we also talked about, you mentioned everybody does a tax return at some point in their life. I'm curious about the subscription model versus the AUM model. What was the impetus of, maybe we should think about this differently? Because my impression is that you started doing a subscription model way before it's as, I don't know how popular it is really today, but before it started coming up in conversations.
So right around, we were testing this out while we were working for our friends at the old agency there. And our mentor said, you know what? You want a daily ka-ching, ka-ching. And AOL was sending out these floppy disks, $19.99 a month. Not that they were making a ton of money, but once you got online with AOL. So we said, let's make this monthly subscription, easily affordable, and then we can introduce them to other avenues of revenue generation. So right now, these subscriptions are outside of business owners because their taxes, it depends what the tax formation is and all that stuff. But for individuals, 1,000 to 200 a month, it includes your taxes. And by the way, we also manage the money under a discounted AUM model while still being open to and critics of the AUM model. And we're constantly looking at, especially with our G2 group, which we have a G2 advisor, bundling in money management where we don't charge an AUM. You pay BlackRock, Vanguard, 12th Street, Harding Loevner, SMAs, ETF strategists. We pay them and the platform that we are, but we don't take and we bake it right into your subscription. So we're not adverse to managing money under an AUM model. What we're saying is the financial planning is bifurcated from investment management. The subscription does not go up or down depending on what your account goes up or down by. And it also allows us to serve that community, whether they're Henrys, I like acronyms, high earners, not rich yet, who most of it's in their 401k, right? They're starting out, they're making money. And so we can say, you know what, $500 a month will do all this. Maybe they started out with the Roth and now they're making $250 because their mom or dad or friend said, hey, when you're starting out, you don't need the tax deduction, make it tax free later. So that's where the subscription has always been. And when you include it with the taxes, you almost get this instant credibility and trust.
Right.
The data is that CPAs that provide investment advice, they would have a clamoring for new people and existing people. Why? Because CPAs are trusted by their far more than, unfortunately, RIAs.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, where we're thinking about it from the client perspective all the time, what you're telling me, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're telling me is for the clients, when they get involved working with you, if they're a Henry, they're not there yet, but they're working on it. This gives them a path to be able to start getting that really high quality advice, and you're going to literally help them grow. So it's your pipeline that you've built is really what you've expanded from there, rather than, everybody going out there and saying, hey, we really want to touch base with you when you're 50 years old and you're 10 years, 15 years from retirement and things are moving right along. You can start helping effectively a lot easier is what it sounds like. Did I hear that right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a natural conversation for, my folks are in their 80s and God, they should live forever. People, I'm 61. And so the question is, when someone gets an inheritance or now they're making money, it's like, okay, we have an investment policy based on your goals, objectives, cash flow, and taxes. So there's never a question as to just call, get in touch with the office and we'll take care of it. Send out the things, brief conversation. It's like, okay, let's just reaffirm what we said when we did your plan update. Make sure nothing has changed. Good, and they're thankful. So you'll take care of it all for us. Yes,
right.
And often, by the way, we are bringing in our attorneys, specialty strategists in that space who've already done mom and dad's wills. And now we're going to do the tax return to find, so it all just flows together. Everyone talks about, well, when this generation goes, advisors are going to lose the kids.
Not unless you've already included the kids in the conversation.
My kids are 32, 30, and 24. Guess what?
Yeah.
They're having their taxes done by the folks that do my taxes. So it's a natural, multi-generational, and we spend a lot of time on the planning because what's important about money to you? Most people want to take care of their families.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yep. So when you're gone, wouldn't it be nice to have something where your kids, your grandkids can continue to be taken care of just like you. And we get involved with often children and grandchildren once they start a job. What benefits should they take? What should they have in withholding?
Right, right. Because that's really that planning early on. There's, with Roth IRAs or whatever, there's advantages you can take while you're the lower income, which once we get above that, we can't enjoy it quite as much. It's a little different animal. So
well, we enjoy significant tax savings when those opportunities present themselves, because you're making a lot of money. And one of the things we say about taxes, let's all be in the highest tax bracket, but pay the lowest amount legally possible.
I think people can buy into that. Yeah, Daniel, one of the things that I love, is that you are constantly looking at it from the client's perspective. And one thing I hear in what you're telling me is you have figured out what the clients really want, that they don't know how to necessarily verbalize, right? They want that peace of mind from the very beginning and beyond, especially for those older generations in a family. And you've really kind of connected the dots there. Now, it also looks like you've figured out some other things, and you've been innovative and almost to the point where some people might say kind of crazy, in that you've done something. You have what's it called, the money back guarantee. I got to be careful with how we frame that, but a money back guarantee on something and how you serve clients. Tell me a little bit about that. That's pretty wild.
So again, we were mentored to call on people that are raising their hand. That our time is also valuable. And sleeping well at night and not worrying all the time and being in chill relationships with people, so what we tell folks is, if you're not wowed in the first 12 months, we'll give you 100% of the subscription back, less what the tax work was, because the subscription we pay directly to the accountant, and you're getting a discount. We'll attach what we paid. We can then part companies as friends. You have your investments are all set up according to your plan. You can take over. Someone else can take over. There's no cost. There's no stress. And, we're humbled that you spent some time with us, and we wish you well going forward. How often has that happened? Maybe 2 or 3 times in 30 years. And even when people have left, and again, it doesn't happen very often. I mean, it doesn't happen in general, and that's the whole thing. When you survey people, 64% would leave their advisor for due every year, regardless of what the model is. And so, yes, we want people to be wowed in so much as they want to naturally tell other people. And psychographics and demographics, like who's doing what and why are they doing it? Yeah, they have a bad experience, they'll tell 20 people.
Right.
They have a great experience, they'll tell 3. So we don't want to be on the bad experience. And if you give people their money back, now again, compliance and all that, and you can't rebate on the broker dealer side. And again, we're following the intent and letter of every rule and regulation. Even though sometimes, like Shakespeare said, first kill all the lawyers. No, not really. Half the guys and gals I graduated high school with, I think, are lawyers anyhow. And we need them, and bright, smart, and caring people. Most of them are the ones.
Yep.
That's the wow. The wow guarantee.
Yeah, that's so great. I mean, I personally love it because it's client first. And really what you're saying there is, when you wow the client, everything else is going to fall into place. That's really what we look to do when you're really focused on the client first. So you're living it. And something else is, you have because one thing I do to get ready for this, we look at your website and try and get to know you from that perspective, not just that Daniel's a great guy to chat with. And you have some things like true success, restylement, kind of some things that you've trademarked and are doing uniquely. What can you share with us about that? Or what would you like to share with us about that? Just to kind of understand, because I think the value of how you think about serving clients in the advisory space is going to be really helpful for advisors to be aware of.
Yes. From a lot of thought leaders that we've had the good fortune to be around, the financial jargon that we use is talking Chinese to regular people. Okay. So part of our servant leadership model is, you first, then me, but you've got to get people in. So this idea of retiring, it's, 65 and Social Security retirement age. That's from from my father, who just turned 89. Yeah, 65, you work, and then maybe you're able to, to spend a few years. So we said, you know what, we've retired the word retirement and we call it restylement. What's your next phase going to be? And how can we, again, push all of our efforts and resources towards your restylement? And it means different things to different people.
Yeah. It allows everybody to kind of choose what they're looking for. So my wife's business is Respace. She's helping people get their space to use it however they want. But you're talking about it, the restylement is in that lifestyle. If your lifestyle is this, maybe you want to adjust it and have it look like this. That may or may not change. Well, it's at some point, it's going to probably change the math of the dollars, but probably a bigger effect in your time and maybe what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Right. And we'll have subscribers. Again, we don't necessarily call them clients, so that's okay. They are clients. Subscribers will often say, you know what, that they're ready to restyle. Again, people will often say it is a big thing. Yeah. Especially with men whose own identity has been their working career often, and women, more and more now, while there's, both people working in a household. It's like, well, what are you going to do? What is your restylement? And so we get folks who start to use our nomenclature, your subscribers, and you make it's not that you have a subscription, add ER to your language. Now they feel part of a community, ethical persuasion, Robert Cialdini, great stuff. And it having people actively participate in making good decisions with us leading them. So there will be some things on there, and there's certain people who it just doesn't resonate with, and that's okay. And they should be successful and happy and find someone that speaks their language.
Yeah, well, you've built with your subscribers. You've built more than just a financial advisory firm. You've built more of a community around it. Now, another interesting thing that you've mentioned a few times here, and it takes me a while sometimes to pick up on stuff. I love how you have subscribers instead of clients. You've also talked a lot about thought leadership and different thought leaders that have helped you grow and develop, and how you do that servant leadership for your subscribers, right? What are you doing? Because I get the feeling that you're doing things to help with that thought leadership for the next generation in the financial services space. What can you share with us about that?
We are looking to, in somewhat of an open architecture way, spread the word on subscriptions. We firmly believe that the AUM model, not that it has an expiration date, and like I said, almost all of the money that are in folks' investment policies are being managed in third-party money. We use InvestNet. They're great. And we transparently say, hey, here's what it is to the more money, the whatever the complexity is, the account, but this whole thing. But that if you lead with the subscription, if you lead with that, and we've come out with a learning product, we haven't gone on a mass release of it, but we've been beta testing it. I think you've had a look at this subscription in a box, excuse me, to show other folks, especially the G2 advisors.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are frustrated with being on a team for years, and a lot of them have CFPs. We brought in our first one. He was, we were lucky to snag him from a large financial services. They weren't really allowed to do plans, and the plans that they were allowed were these 70-page boilerplate things. And they were, so, we would encourage the next generation to embrace it. And I think the market, if you look at Robinhood, you look at all these things that are out there, that's where it seems to be the puck is going, away from that AUM model for financial planning.
Well, I think there's some thought leadership, some important thought leadership there. My dad called it leading the duck. Look at where it's going, not where it has been.
Right.
And that's really what you're talking about here. And there's organizations like XYPN that have subscription-based model. I think I was listening to a podcast where you were on there with Michael Kitces, which you get really technical in that one. And I'm going to do a shout out there. If somebody wants to hear more of the technical side of it, I encourage them to go listen to that. And that was really neat. But, I gotta say, Daniel, I am honored that you shared the time with us today, because I am hoping that and I really think you've got my mind working, and some listeners hopefully start to put some things together, think in a new way about the work they're doing every day. If it's their subscribers or their clients or however that works together. I did want to say, when I went through, I was just intrigued by your really, it's almost like a class that you can go through. And when I went through it on the subscription-based model, it kind of put all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I wouldn't say there's not necessarily bad. It's just being prepared and knowing how to think about it. You went through that in a way that when I was done, I said, if I'm an advisor and I'm thinking about the subscription-based model, how would it work for me? You've thought that all out. And I think there's going to be so much great stuff that you're sharing with the community, the advisory community, as we go. So we're going to stay in touch. Is there anything else on that subject you want to add before we kind of land the plane, as we say here?
No, thank you for the kind words, of course, Chad. Yeah, the future is bright for people who, again, have that servant leadership mindset, especially when it is around money and taxes. Everyone's stressed out for time. They want to find a trusted advisor. They're bombarded with stuff all over the internet. If you can get that personal connection with someone and serve them, then your business will be financially rewarding, no doubt. But you'll feel good about yourself. You'll be around positive people. So, yeah.
Absolutely. What if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Daniel at WMGNA.com.
Okay, there's the email. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in the show notes. We'll make sure we have all the connections information there. And this has been just an absolute pleasure. The way we wrap these up is we like to think about and get to know you a little bit more from a end of when you are restyling. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you are restyling your own life, you're going to be really good at this because you've helped a lot of folks. And you're sitting there and you've already got things set up with the next generation in your family, and your business has gone fantastic. What do you want to be known by?
all those questions, just a decent guy,
Okay.
I haven't really thought out, we've been talking to some folks on the subscription in a box and in getting, the taxes, the subscription model, including the taxes and how that works. And so I've said, you know what, I'm probably going to want to, my restylement is continuing to have a hand in business, a hand in what we're doing as long as I can. My sons, I want to continue to, be there for, a dutiful son to my parents as long as they're alive, and a servant leader to my kids, and a mentor to folks who are interested. And again, I'm humbled that people want to hear what I have to say on whatever it is that they're talking about. Just the experience, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. I'm on my own hero journey and on my own path. Encourage other people to do the same thing. And if someone says, you know what, I bumped into Friedman once, and through all of the whatever it is he's talking about, something resonated and I felt better about myself, then great.
That's fantastic. Well, we're planting seeds today, and what I get from you, Daniel, is that servant leadership. You're if not already known, you're this guy that's going to be known as helping build not just your own business, but families and good lives. So when they get to the restylement, it's an amazing thing. And so here again, thank you. For those that are out there, you'll see in the show notes, you can see how to reach Daniel. Take a minute. I think you're so dynamic in everything you're working on. I just love people that are bringing those ideas into play, helping us get better at everything we do. We had a little bit of bump technical today, and Rob's off. I don't know what he's up to, but he's doing a good job. We'll see him on the next episode of The Advisor's Edge. Daniel, have a great fall, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.